As the vSphere environment at the Wired Brain Coffee Company continues to grow, it's important to leverage a feature called content libraries. Content libraries were created to help you much more easily deploy new virtual machines. So here's what you need to know about content libraries. Content libraries contain virtual machine templates, VApp templates, or even other files like ISO images and text files. The primary purpose being to easily deploy virtual machines. It's like a library of templates and ISO images. Content libraries are managed with a single vCenter server, but you can even share your content libraries to other vCenter servers that are accessible on the same network. And this is especially helpful in very large environments that have multiple vCenter servers. Now, there's two different types of content libraries. There are local content libraries and subscribed content libraries. In this lesson, we'll be covering local content libraries and we'll be saving subscribed content libraries for another upcoming lesson. To create a content library in vSphere, we'll go up to Menu and down to Content Libraries. Of course, you can also go to the home screen, and then here you'll see Content Libraries on the left. Once inside Content Libraries, click the Create icon to get started creating your first content library. Of course, here you can give it a name. We'll just call it Wired Brain Content Library. And notice that it'll be managed with our vCenter server. We'll click Next. And then this will be a local content library. We're not going to publish it right now, and it won't be a subscribed content library either. We'll come back to these options later, but for now, we'll just stick with the default of local content library. Next, we need to specify where we'd like to store our content library items. These are our virtual machine and VApp templates, as well as any other files we choose to include, such as ISO images and text files. Let's go ahead and store the content library on the NFS NAS and click Next. From here, we get one last chance to review our final configuration. Everything looks good. I'll click Finish. And with that, we just created our first content library. You can see this is a local content library. It's not published. It doesn't have a password. It doesn't have automatic synchronization turned on. It's stored on our vCenter server. And right now, it's not consuming any space because there's no templates or other library items. So that's how easy it is to create a local content library. In our next lesson, I'll show you how to import items. In our next lesson, I'll show you how to import OVF templates to the content library so that we can deploy a virtual machine using our new content library. We've created our content library, and now we need to import objects into that library so that we can then use those objects to deploy new virtual machines. In this lesson, we'll import 3 different types of objects to the content library, starting with an OVA template, followed by an ISO image, and then lastly, we'll clone a virtual machine template into the library. We're here in the vSphere client underneath content libraries. And if we click on our content library, you can see right now we have 0 OVF, OVA, or virtual machine templates, and 0 other types of items, such as ISO images. To import a new object into the library, we'll go to Actions and then into Import Item. And it's here that you can specify either a URL or a local file to upload. In this case, we'll go ahead and upload the OVA image that we downloaded from VMware.com to deploy vRealize operations. I'll select the OVA that we downloaded. You can see here it's 3 gigabytes. I'll click OK. Of course, we could give this a more descriptive name if we choose to do so, but in this case, we'll just take the default and click Import. Let's give this a moment to complete. We can check the status and see that we are uploading files to the content library. Let's give this a moment to complete. With our OVA template uploaded successfully, we can check the status of it here. and see that we do indeed have one OVA template deployed into the library. If we click on this, we can get more detail. And of course, we could easily click here and create a new virtual machine based on that template, which we'll be doing in just a moment. Now let's import our second type of content library object. I'll go back into Actions, click Import Item, select a local file, and this time we'll import the Windows Server 2019 ISO image. I'll click OK and import. Let's check the status of the import. And again, we'll give this a moment to complete. And with our import complete, we'll check the status. And we'll see that the ISO image has been imported here underneath other types. And you'll see if we click on other types, the Windows Server 2019 ISO image is available. If we click on that, again, we can get some more details. And this ISO image could be used to deploy a new virtual machine. For example, if we go to Hosts and Clusters and I go to New Virtual Machine, I'll select the new virtual machine, just go through here, take all the defaults. But I want to show you when it comes to the client device that I'm going to install the operating system from, here I can select Content Library ISO file, and I can select the Windows Server 2019 ISO file that we've uploaded to the content library. We'll connect that, and then when we boot up this virtual machine, it would boot that ISO library just as if it's a CD, DVD disk that's inserted into the physical computer. We'll click Cancel here because I want to show you one other type of content library item or object that we can import. I'll click Actions and then Import Item. And we talked about how virtual machine templates can be imported into the content library. But we don't see virtual machine templates here unless you have an OVF template that you wanted to import. That is a possibility. But in our case, what we're trying to do is to bring virtual machine templates or a template into the content library. So what if we took our source Windows virtual machine that we created our template from and right-clicked on it, and instead of creating a template from this virtual machine, what if we clone to a template in the library? So this is going to be a virtual machine template. Let's give this virtual machine a template name. We'll call it template 2. Click Next. And this time, instead of just creating a template, we'll create a template that's going to be in the content library. I'll click Next. We'll select the prod cluster. Click Next. We'll store this on VMware vSAN. Click Next and Finish. Now, if we go into our content library, notice here that we have a new VM template, one VM template named WebWinTemplate2. It's already registered in the library, but it will take a few minutes here to copy over. So that's how easy it is to import objects into the content library. We imported an OVA virtual appliance, an ISO image, and yes, a Windows virtual machine template. Next step, deploy a virtual machine using the content library. With a number of objects created in the content library, including a virtual machine template, it should be very easy to deploy a new virtual machine based on that golden image template stored in the content library. To do this, we can either right-click here in Hosts and Clusters, select to create a new virtual machine, deploy that virtual machine from a template, and then select the template from the content library. Or we could go into the content library, find the virtual machine template that you want to use, right-click on that template, and select to create a new virtual machine based on this template. Of course, you just give this virtual machine a name, a destination, a storage location, You could choose to customize the operating system, customize the virtual machine hardware, and or power on the virtual machine after creation. And then finally, click Finish to create your new virtual machine. That's how easy it is to deploy new virtual machines based on virtual machine templates stored in the content library. Now, in an upcoming lesson, I'll talk about checking out and checking in virtual machines to the library, a new feature in vSphere 7. We talked about how there's two different types of content libraries. You have local content libraries and subscribed content libraries. So let me show you now how to publish and subscribe to a shared content library. First, what we can do is take the existing content library that we created, and if we go into edit the settings on this content library, it's here that you can publish this library to be a shared or published content library that another vCenter server can then subscribe to. So what we can do is to take this link and copy it. And of course, you can add optional authentication, but I'll say OK. And then if we go back to the content libraries, let's pretend now that we're on another vCenter server and we want to subscribe to this published content library. What we can do is to click Create, and let's give this a name. We'll call it Shared Wired Brain Coffee Library. For example, let's say that we're pulling this from the Wired Brain Coffee Company's vCenter server. I'll click Next. And then now we're going to say that this is a subscribed content library, and we'll paste in the URL that we copied when we published our local content library. We're asked if we want to enable authentication, which could be an optional password, and also whether or not we want to download this content immediately or only when needed. So let's say just when needed. We'll store this on the NFS NAS. I'll click Next and Finish. And there you can see we just created a shared content library. We have subscribed to this content library from the published content library. And right now it's not consuming any storage because we chose to only download synchronization when needed. If we go into this content library, we can see the OVF and OVA templates as well as the other type of content object, which in this case is an ISO image. But again, these are only downloaded when they're needed for some reason. So that's how easy it is to publish your content library and then subscribe to a content library in vSphere 7. For now, we'll go ahead and actually delete this content library that we subscribe to. And with that, we're back where we started. There are a number of new features in vSphere 7 related to content libraries. Let's talk about what's new. First off, you have automated versioning of virtual machine templates. So when you update a virtual machine template, the version number of that VM template will be automatically incremented. You could do this in the past, but it was a manual process. So this automated versioning is really cool. The next feature is the ability to check out and check in templates. So if I need to make changes to the virtual machine template in the library, I can check it out, make changes, and then check it back in and include some notes with the changes that I made. You'll see that when you look at templates in the library, on the right-hand side here, I'll select to check out a virtual machine from this template. I'll call this WebWin template 2, check out, test. We'll select the Hilton Head Virtual Data Center, a compute resource, prod, specifically the prod cluster, and click Finish. Now, if we go over into the virtual machine inventory, you can see here's this new virtual machine called WebWin Temp 2 Checkout Test. And notice how it has a unique icon on it to tell you that this virtual machine has been checked out from the content library. If we go back into the content library and look at this virtual machine template, You can see the change tracking that has happened here. The virtual machine has been checked out from the library. And when we're done, we can select here to check in the virtual machine template, and we could add some notes like updated patches to the OS. We'll select check in, and you can see the virtual machine has been checked back in with our notes added to show exactly the changes that we made. Other new vSphere 7 content library features are the ability to revert to a previous version, as well as advanced configuration and optimization options for the vSphere content library. You can see the revert to a previous version option here. If you click on a virtual machine, you can choose to go back to the previous version. You can also see the new advanced options for tweaking the content library by going into Advanced in the main content library screen. So that's what's new when it comes to vSphere 7 content libraries. Now let's review what we've learned.